Hey guys, so today we are going to answer a subscriber question, and the question in question was, Frederick, I'm into a lot of non-mainstream technology. Am I weird? So let's get into it. Now, I think this one is a bit funny because this person, and he actually did go on further and ask me if I feel the same sort of thing, because this person is touching on basically the concept that he's not so interested in these mainstream projects that you may know from most of the internet is hyped about React, for example, or GraphQL and all of these more modern tools. But he himself isn't, he's into something that is less mainstream. Now, I'm going to say, like, there are technologies out there and if you're a beginner, you may not actually know this, but there are varying degrees of popularity on programming languages and tools. Like not everything within software is equal. And it's not equal, not because it's not good at what it does. It's simply because there is this, branding basically. It's marketing, if you will. It's the very similar, you have that in society overall. Some things are more popular than other things, not necessarily because one is more rational or objectively better than another thing. It's more about preferences, and that's what it comes down to. And currently, as you can imagine, if you want to have the highest level of relevancy within the workforce, you're going to have to learn or be good at things, or be at least to be able to adopt the most popular things, because those, like, the popular tools are the ones that the companies are using. So, basically, what can you do if you're not interested in all of that? You want to use something that is less mainstream. Now, examples of this would be Camel, Haskell. There are plenty of other things that could be considered. I mean, in front end, for example, maybe you want to use Aurelia. Maybe you want to use something less mainstream than React. Maybe, Ember is fairly popular still, but say Meteor.js. Like, there are tons of these. Like, they are used. It's not that they're not non-existent. It's more that they are not as common as the more popular tools. And when the question came to me, I mean, if I feel the same sort of thing, I will say that I have a slightly different sort of problem. I don't feel the need to work with different tools just because they're different. I have the sort of problem where I try to always look at a situation from the perspective, okay, I understand the problem here, and I know how we, in the most efficient way, how we can solve it, or in my head, the most efficient way we should solve it. Which tool would fit that problem very well? And that's that doesn't mean that just because we have an SPA or something of that nature, or we have some very classic use case for something, that's going to, that my decision is going to be, all right, we're going to go with the most modern tool, because it's not. Because when you truly try to think about the problem that you're solving and pick the tool thereafter, you shouldn't always fall into the bucket of, okay, this is the most modern, most popular thing, that's the thing we're going to go with. But at the same time, that's very often the case as well. I mean, you shouldn't be on the other side of things where once again, you get emotional and you want to use something more because you want to use it rather than it makes sense. If you're making that mistake, you're simply doing just the opposite. Instead of always going with the popular thing, you're deliberately avoiding the popular thing for personal reasons, and we shouldn't do that either. So what I told this viewer of mine is that, unfortunately, there's really only two healthy options to deal with this sort of problem. And one is that you find a project where they are actually leveraging these less mainstream technologies, and there are plenty of those out there. Because that's the thing you want to do. What you don't want is to do what some people do, and they should have their programming licenses revoked for doing this. And that is that they force their own preferences onto the project. A favorite of mine is the Extremist when it comes to functional programming, where they have been sold on the idea. I mean, they've been introduced to functional programming because, hey, it's super popular, right? And all of a sudden, now I find that they're trying to shim in monads into the code base without any really good reason to do so. There's no reason to do it, but they are still trying to get monads into the code base. And that's doing something that is, once again, it's an emotional thing. They are fucking up the code base because they want to use the tool. It has nothing, it's not right for the project, but they want to use it so much that they will ignore ration and reason in favor of indulging their own emotions. And that's what this comes down to, because the reason why this person may feel strange is it's cute in a way, because it's most likely the main reason why this person became a programmer in the first place, because programmers have this need to indulge their own desire to find new ways of working. I mean, that's why we have all this innovation, because fundamentally programming is a journey of discovery. For every person who does it, you will discover new efficient ways. Maybe it's you who are discovering it for the first time for yourself. Maybe 100 other people have discovered it. That doesn't matter. It's still new to you, and you are making that journey. And people who design and produce these tools, they are doing the same thing. They're creating consistently new ways of working that may fit for certain use cases. And that desire to try new things and try to be, to just be curious about figuring out a better way of doing something, that innovation, if you will, that's the fundamental part of being a programmer. That's the core of what you do. It's most likely the core for most of us, the reason why we got into the field in the first place. But, the thing to remember here is what I said earlier. Although you feel that desire, you need to check yourself, because finding new ways of doing things, like innovation, is very different from change. It's a statement from an old coworker of mine. He stated that one of the biggest problems with front-end developers seems to be that they believe that change is the same thing as progress. And although at the time I actually was a front-end developer, it stung a little bit. But he is right, because just changing things, like not everything that is being produced, not everything that is different is just, is immediately good. And that's the thing you need to take away from this. This is the thing I want you to take away. You need to have a clear understanding of the problem that you are solving and pick the right solution for that problem. Because if you don't, if you are simply changing things for your own personal reasons, you are not contributing, you are not improving things, you're just changing them because of an emotional response to, or rather you giving in to this desire. It's kind of like eating too much candy. There's no real purpose to it, you're just doing it for your own enjoyment. So unless you have the potential to change jobs and go to a place where they can, where they are actually using these less mainstream tools, you're going to have to do it in your own private time. Because what I really urge you to avoid is to force your own value system on the project, unless it makes sense. If you can truly look yourself in the mirror and say, I really want us to use this approach to solving this problem, because this will solve a lot of our issues for us. And I've already done the math, or not math necessarily, but I've already done the research, I've tried it out, it seems to be a solid solution to this problem. Unless you're doing that, and unless that's the case, you shouldn't force your tools onto the project. Because even though mainstream tools may not always be as sexy as these more advanced, obscure tools, there is a value in having mainstream solutions. And that value is that they're well tested and they're very easy to comprehend and very accessible for more people. And there is a massive value in that as well. Have a great day.